expect the Spanish Inquisition. It's head first only television. Good evening. It's 7:34 on Thursday, the 25th of June 2020, and I'm back for my 7th Twitch live stream. How cool is that? As you can see, I've been busy. Loads of changes. I have now got the synth. Yeah, Dave, the synth rack. I've been wanting one of those for, well, since I started buying synths in 1979. I can be Rick Wakeman or Keith Emerson or Jordan Rudess. It's brilliant. All the synths, the Korg M3 at the bottom, which if you watch the opening credits you would have recognised, and the JX3 at the top, have now been joined by their old brothers, the Juno 106 at the top and a very, very old and battered Juno 60 that I bought third hand, and they still work. I mean, the Juno had been in the loft for 10 years. Needed a bit of squirts of service oil to get some of the patch buttons working, but good God, it works. I have also splashed out on a, I don't know if you can see that bit there. We've got my old Mackie mixer, the big mixer, hang on, that this mixer replaced. Rather than recycling it or just putting it in a cupboard, it's now my synth mixer. Next to it, although you can't see it on that shot, so let's go back. Wobby, good morning, good afternoon. Please say hello to Mel from Form, who is with us, and her other half, David, an array of emotions. So, yeah, hello. Next to the Mackie mixer is an old Yamaha Reverb that I bought off a mate about 25 years ago. And again, that's not been used for 15 years. And it's like, hang on a minute, the Mackie's got an aux send and a stereo return. Why don't I just stick the Reverb next to it and I can use reverb on all the Rolands. So here we go. And that one's fallen over. Why is that one fallen over? Quick power cycle. I have been having glorious fun with this. Mel says, how tall is that rack? I don't actually know, Mel. It's probably about 5 feet tall. And it blocks most of the light out of here. Right, okay, that means I've got the mixer levels too high and I've probably turned the Roland... Yes, I have. I've turned the Roland synths up. How's that? Still a bit hot, isn't it? Let's turn that down a bit. Cool. Better, says David. Yes, says Robbie. Good. It's 32.5 degrees in here right now. It is a little warm. How hot is it? I'm British and I have cast off the tyranny of socks. I'm wearing flip-flops. How hot is it? I'm British and I'm drinking lager, although out of preference or deference to Mel and David, it's Belgian lager. So cheers. I hope you've all got beverages to hand because it is bloody hot and it's very important to stay hydrated. Cheers. Mel says socks are the enemy. Damn right they are. Flip-flops. Oh. I bought this pair in Spain when I went on holiday there with Rebecca and the twins about 15 years ago. And I still wear them. David says, I've barely worn socks since February. Good man. Socks are evil. They're instruments of capitalist oppression. Cast them off. Right, housekeeping. We've covered the fact of what day it is, so when you're watching this on YouTube, which I hope you will, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. I've nearly got 30 subscribers on YouTube. Believe me, for the first 5 years, I had none. So that's a good improvement. So please subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube, or even if you're not, because it helps me numbers. Right, that's one thing. The second thing, which carries on from the fact that it's bloody hot in here, is that I'm having equipment hassles. So this webcam, which I am using now, is a very cheap 20 quid Chinese webcam that I got off the internet because everybody's bought the spiffy, flashy, wide angle Logitech ones, and you can't get them for love nor money. The only trouble is it really doesn't like hot weather. So I was Skyping with Mel earlier in the week and it kept cutting out. And so I moved it off the tripod, off the monitor. So it was stuck here. It's now on a little camera tripod above. And that kind of slowed down how quickly it overheats. But unfortunately, it hasn't stopped it overheating completely, and it keeps on just cutting out. So the picture may freeze, but after sounding like I was broadcasting from underneath a couple of hundred duvets a couple of weeks ago, I'm not using the webcam's microphone. So I'm actually using a bunch of stuff that is then piped into the Zoom off the mixing desk. Right, so apologies if the camera cuts out. I was going to say something else, but this is a family show. Right. So yeah, why have I done this? Well, after 30 years of making do with old sort of bits of kit, I mean, most of the stuff in here, apart from the mixer and the M3, is second hand. The JX3P at the top there is pretty much the only new bit of kit that I bought for about 25 years. Everything else is second hand. Everything else is sort of, well, I'll get one of those and I'll make do with it. And there comes a point in life where you think, now hang on, making do isn't really what you want to be thinking about if you're really going to commit to doing this sort of thing. So I sat down and thought, what do I want to do if I could do this properly? I mean, I wouldn't be under a bed. I'd actually have a proper studio desk, but that's for down the line a few years. At the moment, it was well, I've got all these sort of synths lying about that I'm not using, so why don't I just get a proper A-frame rack and set it all up? And I started thinking about this about 4 or 5 years ago. The trouble I've got is that sucker is 143 centimeters wide because I measured it with a tape measure. And in the past, when I've gone to Gear for Music or DV247 or anything like that, all the sort of music retailer sites, and even a certain online retailer whose name we shall not mention, you couldn't get A-frame stands that would fit the M3 at the bottom. Plus it weighs a ton. It is a very heavy piece of kit, as I can attest from the fact that I was moving it round from back there to out there so I could change everything round in the studio. And I haven't done that much physical work since I got sick last August with the kidney stone. So I needed to be a bit fussy about what sort of stand I was after, because it needs to support something like the M3 without collapsing like it was made out of tinfoil. I had a car that did that. The rear seats in my Austin Allegro, if you actually sat on them, the metal frame would fold and you gently slide off onto the floor. Lovely British Leyland. Engineering at its... Yes, moving on. So Mel says, invite me over when you get a desk and I'll help you move stuff around and we'll binge on beef chow mein. Mel knows where I went for my meal yesterday. I promised myself after I'd set all of this up that I'd treat myself to a takeaway from the local Chinese, which has just reopened after lockdown. And if Chopsticks in Manor Lane in Charfield are watching, I'm totally up for doing an endorsement deal. Come talk to me. So last night I had Singapore fried rice and sesame prawn toast and spring rolls, and I weighed myself this morning and I'd put on 2 pounds, which is the first time I've gained weight in about 3 weeks, and it was totally worth it. So yeah. But back to the stand. So yeah, I was looking around for a new microphone, and we'll come on to that story in a minute. And eventually found the German website Thomann, thomann.de, who did a very good price on microphones, but also have an in-house range of keyboard stands, which they brand under the name Jaspers. And lo and behold, not only do they do a 150 centimetre wide stand, which fits the M3, they even do a 170 centimetre wide stand. So goodness knows what you could put in that. Wouldn't fit behind me, of course, because the stack gets in the way. So it's like, okay, there were about 5 different brands from, more or less office shelving systems that you put synths on, to the A-frames, to the, absolute peak of shiny aluminium, stressed steel, or whatever else you want to call it. But black anodized aluminium works perfectly for me, and I ordered it at the weekend. Monday I've spent doing the gardening, which is why I'm a slightly healthier looking colour than I was last week, because I've been out in the sun for almost a day. Tuesday I got rid of a lot of the stuff that was in here, and Wednesday the nice man from UPS had dropped off all the kit that I'd ordered by 11 o'clock in the morning, so I spent yesterday putting it all together. And I have used an Allen key so much yesterday that I'd actually built a blister up on my thumb. How sad is that? Not used to doing hard physical labour like putting stands up and lifting synthesizers. I'm such a wimp. Yeah, so put it all together yesterday. Was absolutely amazed when it all worked. Did the service old trick to get all the sliders and everything else not sounding too scratchy. It probably needs doing again, because all the stuff was covered in dust. It's been in cases in the loft or in cardboard boxes, or in the case of the Juno 106, it's just been propped against the wall in the corner of the studio. So I was absolutely knackered by the time I finished, but when I sat in this chair and turned around, it was like, yes. And that's kind of one of the things that I wanted to talk about tonight, because we're coming up, it's 5090, which is one of the musical songwriting challenges that I take part in every year, starts on July the 4th, which is a week on Saturday. Panic, panic. And a lot of people who do 50/90 for the first time get rid of all their ideas for songs that they've had percolating around within like the first couple of weeks. And then it's like, what am I going to do? I can't think of anything. And one of the things that I found, and I was talking to Mel about this yesterday, is how inspiring changing the space in which you work can be. Because I am more fired up now than I have been in here for years. Having said that, you don't have to spend money on mixing up your space. It might even be something as simple as just writing in a different room to the room that you normally write your music in. Go for a walk, anything like that. Change your space, mix it up. It's shown me over the last couple of days how inspiring that can be. Although the fact that I was doing physical work, I think, and my system, which has been in more or less stasis and torpor for the last year, has been going, oh, hang on a minute. And I feel better now than I have done since I got sick last August. So yay for lugging synthesizers. No, you're going to have to borrow. You're going to have to use your own. I'm not lending you those. Trust me, you wouldn't want to move those around, especially the Korg or the Marshall. Those things are heavy. So, a synth stand, I had to rearrange slightly because the trouble with the Korg is it's got that flip-up control panel, so I had to move all the other tiers up slightly. It's a bit cramped, but it works. And it was ridiculously easy to put together. So, shout out again to the lovely people at Thomann for getting this to me in less than a week. Mel says 50/90 is hardcore. Yes, it is. Mind you, what is more hardcore are the brave souls on the Form 50/90 Facebook group who decided that with lockdown being in progress, doing 50 songs in the 90 days between July the 1st and October the 1st wasn't enough. So because lockdown started 90 days or so before July the 4th, there are people doing not 50/90 but 100, 180. And back in March I was like, yeah, I'll sign up for that, and I think I've done 6 songs. So wasn't feeling it. That is going to change thanks to the moving around in the studio. And that means that one of the things I've been thinking about was, Wobby says I skipped the 100 song things. Very wise. Yeah, 100 is too big a target, I think, to be motivational. It just feels intimidating to me. 50 I can manage. Was it last year? I think I actually ended up writing about 75 songs. It is possible. Wobby says, yep, totally that. Yeah, see, but 50's doable. Trust me, 50 is doable in 90 days. The rate's kind of a bit more relaxed than February album writing month, where you have to write 14 songs during the month of February, so that's one every 2 days, unless it's a leap year, in which case you're supposed to do an extra half a song in whatever way you want to make up that half song. I normally do collaborations. They're great fun. So one of the things I've been thinking of doing is doing an extra stream and building up my Twitch strats. I mean, shameless self-promotion. I want to build my following up on Twitch. I want to build my stats up on Twitch. I want to get closer to the affiliate sort of status. So I need 50 followers. I need to stream a certain amount of hours every week. I need to stream regularly. There's all sorts of things. So A, please follow me on Twitch. B, please tune in. And I think I'm probably going to live stream on Sunday nights, probably at 9 o'clock BST, because that means people in the States who tune in. Oh, right, hang on. Camera's died. Thank you for spotting. Yeah, I need to keep an eye on that. I'm gonna have to bite the bullet, aren't I? Buying cheap stuff doesn't really work. The only trouble is I know exactly what I really want. Again, it's this making do thing. That camera is a making do mindset piece of kit, and the fact that I am no longer in a state where I'm actually worried about where my income is going to be coming from over the next, 10 years or so. I've had enough of the making do thing. So yeah, stay tuned, and I will probably be going online shopping in the next few days to do something about replacing this rubbish camera. But it has to be wide angle, because the Logitech, which if I switch to the Logitech, which is stuck to the roof of the bed, and that one's died as well. That's interesting, isn't it? Let's try reissuing this. See, it is now 33.5 degrees in here. There we go. So you can see it's the Logitech webcam, which is the camera that I was using for streaming in the first place. It just doesn't do what it needs to. The zoom is brilliant, but I mean the zoom is a proper full-on camcorder that I've pressed into service as the main mixer for the OBS stream, because it's got XLR inputs in the back, and a really nice wide angle. I mean, most of the credits were done using that, because it's yeah, it's a nice piece of kit. Oh look, guess what's just happened? I don't know if you heard that noise, but yeah, the Chinese camera's fallen over again. So I'm just going to talk to the zoom instead, if that's all right with you guys, because clearly that's not going to work. In fact, all the lights on it have gone off, so I think it's probably failed. So I'm going to unplug it. Not one of my better purchases, was it? Right, David says bring in the mic a bit, and that was the next thing I wanted to talk about, because the lavalier mic that I've been using for, well, since I started live streaming, really was beginning to irritate me. A, it was really crackly because I got it pinned to my shirt. B, it really restricted my mobility. So after much consideration, I've gone for, I think after this thing, which is still my pride and joy, so which is the Shure Super 55, or the Elvis mic, the sort of iconic microphone that I wanted other than the Super 55. And I mean, I've used SM58s and 57s for years. There's an SM57 just stuck in the bass combo down under the desk at the moment, and I've got SM58 kicking around somewhere, and a few other SM57. Well, I've got a box of dodgy mics, but this thing, I mean, this is talk radio. This is bass response. This is what the radio stations use. So, I will talk to the mic. Mel says, can't hear you much because I'm talking away from the mic rather than to it. I'm really being thrown off by, do I talk to the mic or do I talk to the camera or do I do both? Who knows? Right. I have notes this week. This is how bad it's got. Yes. So, yeah. I've got a lot more stuff in terms of my sonic palette, which is good because that will get used during 5090. So expect to see lots of footage of me faffing around with synthesizers on the Sunday night Twitch broadcasts. I probably won't do one this Sunday, but it'll be 9 p.m. BST on every Sunday while 5090 is underway. So from the 4th of July up to the 1st of October. That's the plan. So, yeah. A lot of this we've already mentioned. I'm just checking my notes. So, yeah, next thing. Every week I always do some checks for software updates before I start the stream. And if you aren't aware, or if you're a Spitfire Audio Labs fan, they've just released a new virtual instrument. It's a mandolin. I haven't played with it yet because I've been too busy setting this place up for tonight. But I've already downloaded and installed it, so there will probably be mandolin on quite a few of my 5090 tracks this summer. I'm also, despite having all these hardware physical synths, a bit of a synth VST nerd, and Arturia's V collection has just had a massive update. I went online this afternoon to see if there were any small updates and got clobbered with a message saying 26 updates available. So I just left this place running and went downstairs where it's 10 degrees cooler than it is in here. How are we doing? Have we hit 34 degrees? No, not yet. 33.5 degrees Celsius right now. Can I hit 35 before we finish the stream, or is it going to cool off as it gets later? Right. Mandolin, got to download it still. Yeah, you've got to get them all, Mel. And if anybody's not aware of this, Spitfire Audio are the company that do the BBC Symphony Orchestra, virtual orchestra, virtual instrument. There are 3 versions of it. There's the professional version, which is so big they will sell it to you on its own solid state drive because it's 600 gigs. There's the core version, which is 299 quid, which is considerably smaller. But then for 49 quid, or if you're prepared to wait for 2 weeks and fill out a customer survey on the Spitfire Audio website, there's the Discover package, which is less than 250 meg, which has a complete symphony orchestra built into it that you can use on your DAW. You just use it as a VST plugin. And to that end, he said, great link. You'd almost think I'd rehearsed. Here we are with one of the pieces of music that I didn't play last week because it really wasn't in the sort of state that that it ought to be, which is another track from my Geometry of Sleep album. So this is me writing about struggling to get to sleep, and I'm going to do 10 tracks. I've decided that, what with it being lockdown and everything, that I'm going to put this on just on Bandcamp, and it'll be pay what you want. So please feel free to go to the Bandcamp page, which also has tons of my other music from many years past. When I finish the album, I'll just put it on Bandcamp. Pay what you want. If you want to download it for free, then knock yourself out. If you want to contribute a bit to paying for all the updates that I've just done in the studio, then that would be much appreciated. David says, help heat the place up. Yeah. Everything is switched on in here at the moment, apart from the Marshall stack, because that would be silly. Okay. Geometry of Sleep. It's about the geometry of the progress that we make from sleep, where we start almost conscious in the sort of liminal hypnagogic and hypnopompic states that happen at the beginning and the end of sleep. And then you've got deep sleep and everything else like that, which is hence I've got the first track, which I played last week, is called Retiring. See the pun there. See what I did there? Then I've got another track which I've played you before called Drifting Off. But this is where we start getting into the science of sleep. This track is called Slow Theta, and it's about the brain waves that start to appear when you're getting into... Mel says, I see what you did. Good. Glad someone's paying attention. The slow theta rhythm is supposedly what washes through the brain and gets rid of all the stuff that you want to flush out after a day's heavy cognition. And slow theta waves are at about 6 or 7 hertz. So in terms of making noises at 6 or 7 hertz, clearly that's not going to work, because unlike elephants, we can't hear sounds below about 20 hertz. And anything below that we just tend to perceive as individual pulses of just sound, rather than pitch. So instead, there are a number... Oh, I really need to minimize that. There are a number of audio tracks that are using an LFO, which is a Max for Live. Yeah, thank you, NVIDIA. I really didn't need to know that. Max for Live's LFO plugin is really nice because it has a map facility. You just click on this button and then click on the audio plugin from Ableton that you want to modify, which I've done. And as you can see, I'm running this at the theta rhythm of, well, it had to be... Oh, you can't see, can you? Hang on. There you go. So you've got a Max for Live plugin, and then the audio crashing waves, which is basically filtering it. Then on this one, we've got a comb filter, which again is running kind of the sort of frequencies that I want to evoke theta waves. And then a much lower LFO here that's running at 0.41 hertz, which is basically just trying to mimic breathing. So that's what I've got there. Let's pop that back there. And on top of that, I ended up or started with a very noisy, very arpeggiated synth track, and realized it was just way too busy. So I basically copied the bass notes and just let them play, cut back a lot of stuff, and there's a lot of Ableton instruments. There's a synclavier and the Analog Lab and Pigments from Arturia's V collection. And then the reason why I'm sort of linking to it on this is this bit here, which is instruments from the BBC Symphony Orchestra Discover Edition. So we've got celli, we've got violins, and we've got basses. So why don't I just play you this, and you can see how the track sort of pans out. So yeah, I'm rather proud of that one. Mel says, "Well done, thank you." Yeah, I think I've probably always nurtured a sort of yearning to write music for an orchestra. And thanks, Wobby. Wobby says, "Nice one," smiley face. Thank you. I surprised myself just how much I've got off on having an orchestra and beginning to learn how the different parts of an orchestra fit together, and the ranges that cellos sit above basses and below the violas, and then above the violas you've got the violins, and that's the strings. I haven't even played with the horn section yet, but I mean, Mel was saying how much she loves horns in arrangements, and my God, I'm just going to go over there and I'll play you some of the horn samples that the M3 has, because they are insane. How about a complete brass section with sforzandos? So I'm basically yellow. What else have we got? We've got some very silly ones. This one's called Chromatic Cartoon. We've got Mysterioso Orchestra. Cornet Majesty. And because this is the radius expansion, because it's got all the bells and whistles. This is Korg's M3 orchestra, but very much velocity sensitive, so it's called the Velocity Orchestra. That thing is amazing, says Mel. Yeah, I've had it 10 years. I can't believe it. In fact, more than 10 years. And I'm still learning what it does. And getting the M3 was like, ooh, orchestra stuff. That's fun. So, I mean, yeah, Mel says, how stupidly expensive was it? And yes, it was very stupidly expensive. It is the most expensive piece of kit I have ever bought. Something's gone bang, and I'm not entirely sure what it was. I don't know if you heard that. Everything's still working? Oh well, I don't know what that was, but let's hope it wasn't anything particularly expensive. The Logitech webcam has now decided to give up the ghost as well, so I'm just going to unplug the other webcams. It is... Yes! I've done it! It's 34 degrees in here. So all my kit is failing. Hooray! So, yeah. Wobby says, yeah, did it a few times. It probably could well be something settling in, because I've moved pretty much everything in the entire room around here. I don't think I caught anything with my foot, but that might have been something as well. Or it could just be, you know, an XLR jack that's settling in because I've been plugging stuff in and not. Oh well, we'll keep an eye on it. Yeah, so where was I? Oh yes, one of the other things, I've got a fan running, because it is, I mean, even with the fan running, it's 34 degrees in here, which is ridiculous. But that may be introducing some noise. The mic mechanic that I have, which I use for treating my audio and making very silly effects with it, although it's probably not showing up at the moment. Yeah, David says, as long as there's no smoke, you're golden. So long as your components never lose the magic smoke that's inside them, you're fine. Very true. Yeah, where was I? Completely lost the thread. It's the temperature, I think, and the fact that I'm not staying hydrated, so cheers. Yeah, I've got a fan running, just trying to blow some slightly less hot air through the open door at the moment, but I don't know if you can see. Yeah, you can see it, that thing there. So that may be introducing a little bit of noise, for which I apologise. The mic mechanic was also whining like nobody's business earlier, and I think I was probably driving that a bit too hard, so I've eased back on that, and I hope that's fixed the problem. Yes, so one of the other things that I can hear, I don't know if you can hear it as well, but bless them, it is rather nice out there, and my neighbours are taking full advantage of the fact, and they're having a barbecue, so there was much shouting and merriment going on earlier, so I've got the rest of the windows in the house open. I've closed the windows in here, which is probably why it's so ridiculously hot now, to keep the sound out, but it may sneak in through the door. There's no acoustic treatment in here at all, other than the fact that I'm sitting under a mattress, which actually does create a really good dead sound. And with the SM57, the results I've been getting with it, even just playing with it over the last 24 hours, which is as long as I've had it, it's like, oh yes, I'm going to like this mic. The original SM7 because this is the sort of updated version, is the mic that Michael Jackson used for most of Thriller, apparently. I learnt this week. It's amazing what you learn. It's got switches on the back, which I would show you if my wretched main Chinese webcam was still working. The switches on the back let you boost presence, and you can also roll off the bass. But who'd want to roll off the bass? It also comes with 2 pop shields, and I switched out the one that it arrived fitted with for basically the Talk Radio pop shield, which is recommended if you're using it in the sort of context where I am, where it's right in front of me. And so I've been able to retire my pop filter, which was, again, a very, very cheap one that never stayed where you put it very often, because it's just pop riveted by the looks of it to... Oh, no, there is actually a screw there. Is that a screw? No, it's not. It's a pop rivet. So it would always just sort of sag, usually right at the point where I was trying to get the performance to sound better. So, yeah. Again, we're back to this mindset of making do and not making do, of actually saying, okay, if I'm going to do this properly, I've got to be serious about it. I've got to commit. And one of the things in committing that I've done even since starting this podcast is change the room in here. And again, going back to how changing your space can change your mindset or your ability to create. Just looking at the wall behind you, I mean, that had the Marshall stack and then bookshelves and stacks of cardboard boxes with basically crap that I've accumulated over the last 30 odd years of living in this house and the house before. And now it's a clear area. I've got you can see some of the effects pedals down at the bottom. I've got the Roland guitar synth there. I've got my little Hercules foot stand, which as I get older and more decrepit, having a foot stand for resting my foot on while I'm playing guitar, I couldn't believe how much of a difference and how much of a reduction in the aches and pains that I have when I've been thrashing about with a guitar, how much of an effect that has. Whoops. But yeah, so everything in here is beginning to come together. I just need to get rid of this. As Mel says, I Marie Kondo'd that shit. Yeah, I have. And in Marie Kondo's own words, this space now brings me joy. So, yeah, good stuff. Right, what are we going to do now? I'm going to play you one of the other tracks. The track that I worked on last week, I have to admit, I haven't done anything with. I just haven't had time. I've been very busy. Basically, I hadn't touched the garden this year, and it was a little bit out of hand. So I've Monday was gardening day. So let's go back to the other track that I said, yeah, there's loads of things that I need to tweak. Last time, only my ears were tired, so I wasn't going to to do anything. Yeah, David says it sparks joy. It does spark joy. Everything in here sparks joy. That's my mission in life, I've decided, is to make music that sparks joy. So that's kind of what I'm doing with this album. Mel says, tell us about your scything experience in the garden. Yeah, the grass in the back garden was a foot high because I haven't touched it. I've just been so out of shape with being ill that I would look at the back lawn and think, nah. And it got to the point over the last week that I looked at it and thought, I really need to do something about the back lawn. And there are rather a lot of thistles and nettles and everything, and there were some growing in the front garden as well, which is, yeah, it's not the neighbourhood where you let the front garden grow out of hand. So I thought, right, why don't I get one of those bladey things, you know, either sickle, scythe, bill hook, machete, or anything else that will help me get things under control, and found online a nice Spear and Jackson, who are a British gardening tool company. I have spades and rakes made by Spear and Jackson because I'm British, and found this thing which was called a razor sharp scythette, which came in two parts. You have to bolt the blade, which was about a foot long, onto the handle, and then just give it a good old swing. And that was one of the most gratifying things I think I've done in about 2 or 3 years, because it just destroyed all the weeds. And then I actually got the lawnmower out of the garage and cut the lawn as well. All right, I was a complete wreck by the time I'd finished. My neighbour actually came over from the other side of the street because, are you all right? I was like, I will be. But so, yeah, that is my scything experience. And WGB's Lithos, when I posted a picture of it on Facebook, said, that's not a scythe. So I will defer to Stephen's gardening tool expertise. Right, Ableton has finally got its act together out, and yeah, watching Mel's stream yesterday where she was talking about scoring the 1927 Fritz Lang movie Metropolis, and do check Mel's stream out if you've not watched it, it's really brilliant. So that's Riako Music on Twitch. She had 98 tracks on her Ableton, so I'm feeling a bit inadequate because I've only got 21 here. Although track number 21 is the Korg M3. In fact, it is this patch. This is the non-velocity orchestra. I should really rehearse this sort of stuff. So again, I really got carried away with the BBC Symphony Orchestra Discover Edition. So not only have we got legato cellos and violas. See, it's all about the mid-range. Not a great violin fan. Never have been. It's all about the extra timbre of the violas and the cello, and I love. Oh, I know what it is. It's my guitar lead. David gets the initial Indiana Jones quote in. Well done, David. Yes, it belongs in a museum, much like most of the equipment in here. Right, So in addition to the cello, we've got spiccato cello, we've got basses. I did actually start playing around with the horns. As you can see, everything's frozen because, in fact, I should really have done this before I started. Let's close my screensaver down. Yeah, Wobby said it sounded like a jack, and Wobby, you were absolutely right. Good 1/4-inch jack on a nice Fender tweed cable. I should have thought of that. Maybe, and I should definitely have thought of it, considering I am not wearing socks. I should have noticed the fact that I was treading on a cable. Wobby's laughing because Wobby and I and some of Wobby's other friends used to run. We should do this again, you know. We used to do, what day of the week was it, Wobby? We did our little odes to socks, to our favourite socks and poems and pieces of music, because that was bloody good fun. I've still got most of mine kicking around on here somewhere. Good Socks Tuesday, that was it. We should do that again. We really should do that again. Okay, no socks. David says there's a great YouTube video where Tom Morello actually plays his guitar jack like an Tom Morello is a monster. Tom Morello is who I got the idea to use Melodyne to mess around with my guitar solos with, because it's basically like the most OCD friendly whammy pedal that you can think of, because you can just chop each guitar note in your solo into tiny little fractions and then bend it. So that's what I did on, you remember I brought out an album a few years ago called The Blackest of Dogs, which was all about my experiences with depression. I'm such a happy soul. There is a track on that called Hold Fast, and the closing guitar solo on that was actually quite mundane before I threw it into Melodyne, and I did that entirely thanks to Tom Morello, who is a monster creative force, superb guitarist. Okay, so back to this. This is the first track on the album, so it's very much talking about trying to get to sleep, which is something that I'm not afraid to admit I struggle with immensely, whether it's a mental health thing, whether it's a physical health, and I just cannot get comfortable to fall asleep at the moment. Also, it is ridiculously hot at the moment, and I only figured out I was still sleeping under a winter duvet when I woke up yesterday morning. So yeah, I now have a 3-tog duvet instead of the 15-tog that I've been sleeping on for the right, David, yeah, my mod rules strip out URLs, so if you can ping me the video URL on Facebook, I will watch it, but I'm sure Tom Morello and Guitar Shack in Google will let you find it. Right, brilliant. Okay, so where was it? Yes, so lots of tweaking of the original arrangement that I played you last time, because it was too busy and a lot of the different string sections were fighting each other. So what I ended up doing was soloing one track and then holding down control and soloing, so I was getting both tracks playing at the same time, to see what worked and what didn't, and what was fighting and what was sort of helping the original track. Now, I don't think I'm there fully yet. And Mel, if you remember, you said, "Oh, you need to move those notes forward because they're not hitting the beat." And so there was a lot of shifting stuff backwards and forwards on the timeline. There's also a sample of a ticking clock, which I used a little lavalier mic, or was it a contact mic, and record it. And that, because this is a 60 BPM track, I could let play rather than having drums. So it may sound pretty much like the track sounded last week and the week before. Well, not the week before, because that Chinese webcam made it sound like it was coming from under 100 duvets. This is what it sounds like now. So yeah, I've still got a few things in there that I need to tweak, but that's come a long way from where it was even last week. Uh, and again, I am just getting off on using the BBC Symphony Orchestra Discover package so much. It is just huge fun. Now, if you look at a lot of the stuff here, you've got a patch there called Planetary Band and one there called KBO2. I'm actually recycling my own stuff now. So when I did the ambient album Beyond Neptune that came out a couple of years ago, which is available on Bandcamp if you want this. Beyond Neptune is like the first sort of dark ambient-y type stuff, or whatever genre you want to call this sort of music. If it's sort of Mike Oldfield meets Jean-Michel Jarre, I'll take that because that's kind of the vibe I'm going for. But I don't know what you'd call it. And when I did Beyond Neptune, it was a bunch of tracks about different Kuiper Belt objects, or KBOs, which are things that lurk in the solar system beyond Neptune, hence the name, which aren't big enough to be classed as planets, but which are quite extraordinary astronomical bodies in their own right. One of them is called Haumea. They're all named after sort of Pacific culture gods, or a lot of them are, like Make Make. Haumea rotates so fast that from its north pole to its south pole is half the distance from one side of its equator to the other. It's spinning so fast, it's actually bulging out at the equator by a factor of two. Absolutely amazing. So a lot of the stuff on here, I got an interesting vibe going. The Korg, something I've always done with, certainly with the JX3P, not so much with the Juno 106, but certainly with the Juno 60, and very much with the Korg, is that I don't use the presets. The presets on the Rolands, I mean, they're nice sounds. There's some very, very familiar ones. So, you've got. So yeah, nice sounds, but I prefer making my own sounds, and I really went down the rabbit hole with the Korg, because you can layer up to 16 different timbres, each of which is polyphonic. You can trigger different timbres on different sections of the keyboard. You can make certain timbres play predefined patterns, and there are hundreds of them. This is the Korg's function, which is called Karma. And okay, see if Wobby recognises this. I don't think Mel and David will, because they're not familiar with the culture, but see if you remember this. So many presets, so many programs. Where is it? Where have I put it? around too much so I can't hear what I'm playing. Yes, well, we got it. It's the gallery theme from Vision On. It's actually playing bum notes in that was probably a good idea, because it'll stop Twitch going, hang on, that's copyrighted music. The track is actually called The Left Bank 2 by a band called the Novel Tones. And try as I might, I have never been able to find anything else by them at all. But yeah, for those of us of a certain age, that track was... So Vision On was a BBC art programme presented by Pat Kiesel and Tony Hart, who... Wobby says the gallery theme from Take Heart is... See, I missed Take Heart because I was sort of working by the time that show started. Yeah, Vision On was for deaf children, and it was an arts show, and it basically viewers were encouraged to submit their own artwork, which would be shown to viewers, and it was just literally the camera slowly panning along a wall of drawings by children, and it was always accompanied by that piece of music, well, by the proper piece of music. Vision On launched quite a few interesting careers, because one of the characters that they would have like little films in the middle of things. One of the characters in Vision On, who became a star in his own right, was Morph, who was a little plasticine man, and that was one of the first big time breaks that Aardman Animation got. There was also a character called the Prof, who basically larked about in fields wearing a white coat and blowing things up, which was all filmed and then sped up. And the Prof was played by a promising young actor called Sylvester McCoy. I wonder what happened to him. Anyway, so that's... Yeah, there are still bits of this that annoy me. The ticking clock, I keep on thinking that should, because at the end it should end on the 3 beat. Wobby says he taught me to play spoons. Right. Wobby has won the internet for tonight. Respect. That is excellent. Mel says this is a British thing, isn't it? Yes, it totally is. But yeah, what are you going to do? Yeah, I keep on going back to this and listening to it and thinking, yeah, that ticking clock, the last tick has got to be on the 3rd beat. And listening to it now, I was counting, and it's like, did that end on 2? And it's really winding me up. So I will have to go back and faff about with this even more. But I hope you can tell from, I mean, if I just play this section, I'm going to indulge me. I'm going to play this section again, where all the strings come on, because I'm really quite proud of how it came out. And you'll also notice that there's a lot of placing in the stereo field so that things don't trample over each other. And I thought I would use stereo for effect when I'm doing stuff with, the guitars and writing stuff for February album writing month and 50/90. But when you start using an orchestra, you don't half realise fast how important it is to have everything spread out. There is a reason why you have that traditional orchestra layout that's in, the BBC Symphony Orchestra interface. But yeah, so it's like, okay, those are there for a reason. So I separated them all out. let's just drop in wherever it goes. I got it right. I don't need to redo it. I obviously just miscounted earlier. Mel says, and you're grouping now. Yeah, I totally am. Completely stole that from you. The reduction in latency from using groups rather than just routing everything through in the whatever. I completely blanked on what you'd call that. But whatever the routing options are, Mel says, I know, right, in capital letters. Absolutely right. Absolutely right. And yeah, so a certain very large American university that offers a massively open online course on Ableton had basically shown me a completely different way of grouping tracks, and it doesn't work anywhere near as well as just Control G. So, okay. So what, you'll learn stuff on this channel, folks. It's worth sticking around. Yeah. So there's a few things on there, but I think I'm nearly there with that one. Maybe some of the balance on it, and I want to I think it's the violins. So there's a set of it's the cellos. So there's one section playing held notes, and then another lot that are basically playing descending triplets. So they're going dee 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 dee, and then the other ones are just using chords. So there are the chords. So if I've got this right, yeah. So here are that. So it starts by rising, and then it switches to falling. And you can see from the automation lane in that I have been going a bit nuts. So if I just solo these two tracks, because it's my channel and I can if I want to, so let's solo that one and then control and solo that one, so you can hear both at the same time. You can hear what I was trying to go for. So Mel asks, what are you adjusting on the automation? So there are two things. There's one MIDI chat, and this, I have to say, if you've not watched them, Think Space, Guy Mitchell Moore's YouTube channel. He covers film composing, scoring, producing soundtrack music. He's a hoot. And there are weasels. Yeah, check out. I mentioned it last week, so I'll put the URL again on this week's channel when I edit this down to YouTube. But Guy actually has an Akai controller set up. I think it's the Akai. He's got a controller which is basically set up for CC11 and I think it's CC7, which are the dynamics and expression controllers in a lot of these virtual orchestras. So what I'm doing here, if I just sort of expand it, effectively the first note I want to really hit. So it's dee 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 dee. So that's what's happening. I'm making the virtual players really emphasize the first note and then tail off, so it goes. So there's a rhythm to it that you won't get if you're just triggering the notes and not looking at the subtleties of control that. And again, this is a 250 megabyte package. If you use tricks like this, it doesn't sound like it. It's free, or 49 quid if you want to. You want it now. It's these tricks. It's using the additional parameters and then automating them in whatever your DAW is. I mean, Ableton is brilliant for this. If I was really clever, what I would do is I would actually have the push configured so that I control the expression and the dynamics using the knobs on the push. That's, it will happen because I am getting obsessed with this package, and it's like, okay, what else is under the hood? And I mean, if you look in terms of what's under the hood, these are the other. Look at all these parameters that you can tweak, and this is just in the cut down free version. Imagine what the 600 gigabyte version would be like. It would. I would love. I just so love the chance just having that level of stuff to fiddle with. I'd never leave the house. Never leave the house. Okay. It's 21:08, so I've been going for nearly 100 minutes. So how are you guys doing? Shall I keep going, or have you had enough? Mel says, "What about reducing the velocity of the second and third notes? I do that sometimes." Yes, and that in fact is probably also happening here. Let's have a look. Oh, it's frozen. Let's unfreeze it so we can actually have a look at the dynamics on this. So unfreeze track, and then double click on that. So yeah, it's pretty homogenized, isn't it? There's a few sort of drop down. I think I probably haven't fiddled with that. David says, "Feel free to keep going if you feel like it, but I know it's bloody hot in here." It's actually stabilized. It's 34 degrees. I've got this is my casual Friday, one of my many casual Friday shirts from when I worked in Tampa. Believe me, some of the others are even louder. So I'm doing all right. I'm enjoying hanging out with you guys. So yeah, let's sort of crack on, maybe till past. Mel says, "I mess with velocity all the time." Yeah, I do too. And depending on what instruments you're using, some tracks or some instruments really respond to variations in velocity, and yet others are pretty consistent. I mean, of these polysynths, only the Korg is velocity sensitive and has aftertouch, but crazily enough, the Push has both velocity sensitivity and aftertouch, and it's really, really responsive. In fact, dare I say it, it's even more responsive than the Korg is, which, when you consider the Korg was nearly 6 times more expensive, that's quite a discovery. So if I put the cello on, there's one hell of a lag on that, isn't there? This is my system struggling, I think. So there's a lot you can do rather than just note on, note off, note on, note off, and it's that sort of side of things that I'm really beginning to go down the rabbit hole with, and enjoying myself hugely. So yeah, I'm not gonna save that because I don't think we'll do that. So yeah, one of the things that I did want to tweak, because what I tend to do is, Mel says that Push is quite sensitive. It is. When I bought it mainly as a sort of upgrade from this thing. Which is Ableton's collaboration with Novation. This is an original Novation Launchpad, which is basically a session controller for Ableton, and this is the piece of kit that when I went across for Louis' 30th birthday to Vancouver in 2012. Good God, is it really 8 years ago? Whoa. Yeah, a lot of the William Gibson crew, including Mel, are musicians, and we all got together and had a jam in a recording studio for an afternoon. And Louis, being Louis, he'd let his friend Bill come along, and when Bill clapped eyes on this, I got the best response of best-selling author that I will ever get, because he just went, whoa, what's that? So when you've impressed the guy who wrote Neuromancer, because Bill was William Gibson, the rest of the day is, is just golden. But it's very limited in terms, or back then it was very limited. I know they've modified it a lot. So when Ableton basically partnered with Akai and built their own controller, and I saw Jordan Rudess performing a solo, and again I'll put the link up in the YouTube on this. There is, if you watch my credits, you'll notice when I'm talking to the camera, I'm wearing a Project RNL shirt. They're a amazing bunch of very, very talented Israeli musicians who have done several collaborations with Jordan Rudess, the keyboard wizard and keyboard player with Dream Theater and various other musical projects, who's a monster keyboard player and also develops his own iOS applications, like GeoShred, I think, is one of his. But there is a Project RNL video where Jordan plays a keyboard solo on one of those. And I saw that video and it was, I want one, I've got to have one of those. And I think I bought one within a week. And it was like, okay, now what am I going to do with it? And surprisingly enough, I found that I used it a lot more than I thought I was going to. It was kind of a very, very self-indulgent gimmick, because back then I could afford to be self-indulgent every now and again, but it was like, hey, this really works. The fact that you can, oh, yes, because my Logitech camera's died, hasn't it? I was going to switch to the top-down view so I could actually show you the controls, but maybe when things have cooled down, we'll come back to this. I'm just catching up on the chat because I've got totally carried away. Wobby says, I've just realised that when I've panned my orchestral arrangements, I've done it the other way around, because I automatically think of it from the orchestral's point of view, being originally an orchestra. That's brilliant. I love it. Yeah. So I guess you're gonna have your cellos on the left, aren't you? Or yeah, whatever. As Mel says, it's all good. You don't always have to arrange stuff in the standard orchestral positions. And yeah, absolutely right. It's what works. Bobby says, yeah, I guess. Just weird, only just realising that. Brilliant. Okay. Yeah, so completely sidetracked, off a sidetrack, off a sidetrack. This is like Deadpool breaking the fourth wall, inside breaking the fourth wall. I love that film. I've got to watch it again. I have completely squirreled myself now. I have no idea what I was going to say. I'm going to watch this afterwards and go, Chris, there will be captions. No, it's gone completely. Okay. Yeah, so we're on to a track that is nearly there. But what is bugging me with this track, and again, this is a track that I've played before. What is really bugging me is effectively the lead line. Oh yeah, Wobby says you were talking about the top-down view to see the controls. So yeah, one of the things that you can do with the push is that it has a scales button, and if you press it, you can't actually see it, but these green buttons on the display correspond to, C, G. Well, it's really weird. C, F, G, B flat, D, F flat, A flat, E, D flat, B, and G flat. And I can switch between major, minor, Dorian, Mixolydian, Lydian, Phrygian, Locrian, whole tone, half tone, half whole diminished, whole half diminished, minor blues, minor pentatonic, major pentatonic, harmonic minor, harmonic major, Dorian sharp 4, Phrygian dominant, melodic minor, Lydian augmented, Lydian dominant, super Locrian, 8-tone Spanish, Bhairav, Hungarian minor, Hirojoshi, Insen, Iwato, Kumoi, Palog Silesia, Pelog Tembung, Messiaen 3, Messiaen 4, Messiaen 5, Messiaen, and so there are loads of different scales and modes that it works in, and it stops you playing stuff that isn't in the mode by hiding the buttons. So if I hit fixed here, you can see it's height, so it's now revealed the grey notes on this. I don't know if you can see that. I'm probably going to wreak havoc lifting it up. No, okay, maybe not. That's a shame. We'll do it next time. But basically it allows you to, rather than having a chromatic display of every note on the piano keyboard, it will just show you the notes that fit that mode. And my God, the chords that you can come up with in doing that, I love it. And it lets me extend my chordal palette into stuff, because I'll just mash buttons at random and go, ooh, that's nice. I love Phrygian mode, and I love Locrian mode, and some of the stuff that you can come up with. It's like, oh yeah, I'm just playing this in D Locrian. It sounds really great, but it's the push that knows everything. It's not me. Right, so here we are. I'll just play you through this one, and then we'll call it a night, because it is still 34 degrees in here, and I've just realised I didn't have my tea yet. Good Lord. So this is Drifting Off. This started out as being the first track that I was going to have on the album, but then got the idea of struggling to sleep with the ticking clock motif, and that became retiring. So you retire to bed rather than retiring from a job, which in both cases I am doing. This track is more about trying to get to sleep, and the labs. So we're back to Spitfire's free plugins. Remember I mentioned the mandolin has just been released. So if I solo it, what we've got here is the Labs Resonator music box. So if I just play a bit. The trouble is, if I unsolo it, so it's too harsh, and I think it's the reverb that's doing it, which is the Exponential Audio R4 reverb. Not knocking Exponential Audio's products. This particular reverb is an absolute monster. But I think the preset that I've got there, after I've tweaked everything else, just isn't isn't working for me at the moment. The other thing though that I've learned, and this one actually isn't a BBC Symphony Orchestra plugin. If I solo it, it's this. This is. I'm gonna have to unfreeze this because. So again, we're back to Labs Audio. So you've got the familiar Spitfire interface, and Mel. So this is the dynamics and expression sliders. So these are the things that you can automate in Ableton, but they change the behavior of the played note. And this is basically how much reverb you put on the played back samples. So there's tons of reverb on this, and if I might help if I got the track armed. There we go. Yeah. Don't know what's going on there. I may have the note range wrong, but so if I play it. It's that sliding up cello that turned out to be the heart of the track. Mel says maybe tweak it in EQ before the reverb. Yeah, I think me being me, what I'm actually gonna have to bite the bullet and do is just learn what R4 can do, because Isotope have bought Exponential Audio, so these were effectively freebies when I upgraded to Isotope and Neutron 3 at the beginning of the year before we did February album writing month, and I just haven't spent the time of sitting down and reading the manuals and finding out what all the fancy graphics are and everything else. I mean, there are nice tooltips, and basically I've got by reading the tooltips, and that only gets you so far. And I think I need to just sit down with the manual and either find a way of controlling the harshness, or maybe, and there are EQs and all sorts of things inside this, and you can hide or roll off particular frequencies that you might not want to sort of lift when the reverb kicks in. And apart from anything else, just the number of presets that there are in this program, you know, a cow in a can. I have to say, somebody obviously doesn't like the current administration in the States in terms of the presets in some of Exponential Audio's reverbs. I don't think it's this one. It may be Nimbus, but one of the other reverb packages has references to Kellyanne Conway and various other people in either the current or past iterations of the Trump administration, and it's like, okay, that's different. Yeah, it's not here. So in this one we've got There Goes Lunch and Underground Bunker. Oh, I guess that's a reference to, yeah, let's not go there. Yeah, there are an awful lot of things in R4 and in its sister package Nimbus that I need to investigate. But for now, what I'm going to just do, and I won't save this after I've tweaked it, is I'm going to delete R4, And instead, I'm just going to use Ableton's own reverb, because it has to be said, Ableton's reverbs are actually very good. And so one of my go-tos is just the concert hall. But for this, because it's dreamy, I'm actually going to just use church. Never really have it more than about sort of 30 or 40%. And in fact, when I'm using a vocal reverb, most of the time I'll have it below 20%. And let's see what that sounds like by comparison. Maybe a bit more decay. Let's try that again. What's it sound like with everything? It's those high notes, isn't it? The harshness still sits in there. But that actually, to me, sounds better. It's closer to the character of the original. If I bypass all this. So you just hear the clean signal. So this is what the instrument's actually doing. So there's a resonance in there somewhere because it's a sort of metallic. It's something hitting a metallic strip or plucking a metallic strip. There's some resonance going on, but actually, yeah, I think I'm onto something there. So I'm going to save that in version 2 rather than overwriting. Yeah, and that's something that I wish I'd learned earlier on when I was doing this. Rather than overwrite the original mix, save another copy of it. It doesn't make that much more room. Yeah, Mel says, what if you reduce the velocity in the highest, sharpest notes? I think it's actually the dynamics that will do it, because the sort of expression of the note, it's more the attack. But yeah, I'll try velocity, I'll try expression, and I'll try dynamics. I think it's those. It's this bit here. These notes. It's that run that is bugging me. And I hadn't realised it was just those notes that are doing it. So that's definitely something I will try. Oh yeah, Mel says just EQ it. Believe me, I all about the EQ. So you can see I've already there's one peak there. If let's just loop it and just really drive you mad. So let's just play that a few times. You see? So widening the Q on that actually does bring it out slightly. Yeah, Mel says, what about a low pass filter EQ on just that instrument? There's a lot of mud going on down there, isn't there? But there are actually some. I think the fundamental is you've got the fundamentals at about 400 hertz, which I don't want to lose. So yeah, again, I'm gonna try this. There are various things that Sculptor does. I've already rolled off the tone on this to cut the harshness down. So if I whack that completely changes the character of it. But of course this is acting on the group, so yeah, Mel's saying just do it on that instrument, and that's absolutely right. Okay, enough of that. That's driving me mad. So yeah, that's actually been helpful. Just talking through my thoughts on what's bugging me about this track and what I need to do to sort it out. Yeah, cool. Well, it's gone 9:30, so I guess it's 25 to 11 over in Europe for Mel and David. I think rather than going further down the rabbit hole for the moment, I'm just going to switch everything off and open the windows and cool the house down a bit. It's still 34 degrees in the evening. So Wobby says, can't hear you. Yeah. Stay well, stay safe, stay sane, and I'll see you next time.